Yeah, whenever you're ready.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our August meeting. I'm Ruben Pancho. I'll be sharing the meeting today because Christopher is on a trip. I think it's somewhere at the airport now. So I welcome everybody and thank you for taking your time out of your busy time to attend to the commission meeting this afternoon. We will start with the approval of the agenda. Or before that, I would like a roll call. So Stephanie, if you can do the roll call.
I can do it, sure. Kathy? Do we have Kathy Hogan? Scott?
Here.
Veronica? Here. Ruben's here.
Here.
Carrie? I think she said she didn't think she was going to be able to make it. Julie? Do we have Julie? I think she said she was going to come virtually. Chris isn't here. Tanya?
I'm here.
Alyssa? We have Alyssa. Bobby?
Here.
Deneen?
Here.
Zach?
Here.
Pat, we have two Pats. Pat Trainer? No. Maggie?
Maggie Williams, is that who?
Yeah,
I'm here.
Maggie Williams.
Virtually. Sorry, my camera isn't working for some reason, but I am here.
Okay. We have Katie in for Chris.
Yep, here.
Patrick. Oh, I see Julie. Julie just logged in. Jesse, you're here for Chad, right?
Yep.
What was your last name again, Jesse?
Carlson.
Carlson. Brad.
Here.
Brandon.
Della.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Okay, what was your name?
Jennifer Henderson.
Oh, okay. Jennifer Henderson. I had you on my list too. I wasn't sure which one of you was going to be coming.
Yep.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yes.
Okay, that should be it. Do we also take note of other people that are here? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so Steph Boucher, Homestead Commission Coordinator. Trevor?
Permanent advocate.
Okay, and then if you guys, oh, where'd she?
That's Amy Bergen
Amy
from
Bergen, yeah.
RSI, and I'm Cheryl Anderson from Voc Rehab.
Okay, perfect.
All right, from sound of it, I think we have a quorum. So we will proceed with the approval of agenda. I hope you guys have agenda in front of you. And unless if you have any question or anything that need to be added, I would entertain the motion.
This is Veronica. I move to approve.
What?
I move to approve. This is
Yep.
Veronica.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Agenda has been approved. The next item in our list is approval for the minute of June meeting. And I think you guys have those minutes in front of you. They were sent out earlier. If you have anything, any correction or anything that needs to be table, then let me know. If not, I'll ask for an approval of the meeting, the minute of the last meeting.
This is Julie. I move to approve the minutes.
Second,
This is
Janine will
Tanya, I'll
second.
second.
who?
Say that again.
Janine will second.
All right. Those in favor of approval of minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The minute has been approved. Our next item, item number 4, that point of discussion we have earlier, right? Yep. So in the last meeting, we look at goal number 7, and there were some discussion to be continued. So we are here for that. Do you guys want me to read it, or do you have that in front of you? Anybody have question on goal number 7? Okay. Do we need approval for this too? Or no? Okay.
This is approved in part of our Olmstead plan like several months
Right.
ago, so.
Okay. So we will move to the item number 5, and that will be a presentation on competitive integrated employment. And our presenter today is Cheryl Anderson.
Yes.
Okay. So floor is yours.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me. So just some background information in the passage of Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act in 2014. The definition went from competitive employment to competitive integrated employment. So competitive integrated employment, and those are the regulations that vocational rehabilitation follows as it relates to implementation of our program and the services that we offer. So if we think about competitive integrated employment, it's working or earning at or above minimum wage, whatever is the prevailing wage. So in North Dakota, it's $7.25, but in another state, although the federal regulation is $7.25, their state minimum wage might be different. So making sure that when we're looking at assisting individuals, that they're making what everybody else would be doing the same job. So in the past, integrated might have been, okay, we're going to have customers, we're going to have other people that people with disabilities might have an opportunity to be part of, but integrated really means that they're working with people doing the same type of jobs with or without disabilities. So it's not just the passerby that constitute integration, it's actually working and doing the same job as others, getting paid the same job as others, receiving the same job as others who are doing the same type of job. So we used to just look at wages, and now we need to ensure that it's competitive integrated employment and that it's something typically found in the community. So sometimes when it passed, we said, well, somebody's cleaning buildings, is it integrated? Well, that's something that's typically found in the labor market with or without disabilities. People have a contract and they clean a job. So there's 3 different criteria that our counselors will look at when we think about competitive integrated employment. And so one of the things that I was asked to do is talk a little bit more about customized employment, which is one of the services that VR offers. I have a visual for you. So in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, they actually expanded a service called supported employment to include customized employment. So this was basically, it's in the regulations, it expanded competitive employment to competitive integrated employment. and it expanded the definition of supported employment to include customized employment. And so this is a service that's designed for those individuals that are when we determine eligibility, have the most significant disabilities, that we're really trying to match the individual's abilities with unmet needs of the business. So it's a different approach to helping people find a job. It might be creating a job, it might be negotiating a job negotiation, do parts of those jobs, because what we're really trying to do is find the unmet need of the business to match the skills of the individual. So looking at a different approach to that. And so when the passage happened, some of the things that kind of are probably important for you guys to understand is it's part of supported employment. And when I think about when I talk with our counselors, supported employment is you go to the box store, you get the cupboards, out of the box you put them up. Customized employment is you're going to design a specific way, you're going to meet your kitchen's needs, and it's going to look a lot different because you're going to design it yourself. So one of the things that individuals, if we're thinking about customized employment, we're going to say that they meet the criteria for supported employment, meaning they're going to need support to get a job, training on the job, and continuing support once the VR case is closed. So that's kind of the first criteria. Due to their disability, they might struggle with competitive integrated employment, and they've tried it in the past. And then they require that the individual, that we need to negotiate with the employer. So it's one of those things where somebody can go just get a job and they can do all the jobs. We're going to look at supported employment. If they're going to get a job and they have to do a certain piece of it, then we're going to look at customized employment. And sometimes they may look the same, but how that person got the job is going to look different. When we did the pilot, we had a couple of individuals that were working, that ended up working, and you could say, well, that wasn't a customized job, but it was because the job didn't exist before. We had a young lady who loved animals. In fact, she was my client when I was a counselor, so it was really cool to see her later. That's just me. And she wanted to work with animals. Well, working with animals, you have limited opportunities. So when we were looking at customized employment, the provider really looked at different places, did some informational interviews, really tried to find businesses where maybe there was an unmet need. So in her situation, she actually ended up working at a dog grooming business where the job didn't exist before. And she helped clean, did some janitorial stuff, but also was able to help if somebody needed to answer the phone. She could stay with the animal. If you have an animal, you're gonna really, if you've seen any of those apparatuses that they put them on, having somebody there that's gonna cover that animal or pet them and do that. The job didn't exist before, but they negotiated it for her to be able to provide that. And by her being able to do some of these things that generally the groomers did, they could actually groom an additional dog. So they were able to make additional dollars. So there was a job negotiation there and a job description developed. Janitorial, everybody, that's a common job, but in this situation, it wasn't because the dog groomers had to do it or the owner would have to do it. It allowed them to do other things. So some of the things that our counselors will also consider, so this is kind of their criteria, and then there's 7 other things that they're going to look at to say which one might this person fall into. And so it might be a situation in the past, if we closed their case unsuccessful and they had supported employment or any other type of service. If they've had 2 or more supported employment cases, not that we wouldn't still do supported employment, but maybe we're not finding the right person, the right job, the right environment. Maybe we need to negotiate to make sure we're meeting that person's needs and the employer's needs. If they are in supported employment and we're looking and we can't find a job for them, the counselor can consider customized employment so that we can utilize some different techniques through our provider partners to help that person find a job. If the counselor, if there's somebody new, somebody coming out of school, or somebody who might have not worked in the past and they're not sure that they can benefit from customized employment or from supported employment, we might consider customized employment. One of the services that we have, if we're not sure somebody can benefit from VR services, is what we call trial work, which with customized employment, we don't do that very often because we would rather try to see if that person can be successful versus seeing if their disability is too severe to benefit from VR services. So when counselors call me and we do consultation and they have a provider in their area that has participated in the training, then we would look at customized employment. It's just, I would rather see what we can do versus saying, oh, we're gonna try these trial work sites, and if it's too severe, then we're just gonna close your case. Ineligible, meaning your disability is too severe. Some situations, if individuals are in small group or receiving sub-minimum wage, there's a Department of Labor has a 14C certificate that allows employers to pay people less than $7.25 an hour. It's a time study thing. Thankfully, in North Dakota, we used to have 900 people that were getting paid sub-minimum wage. We now only have two employers that offer that opportunity. So as they're negotiating contracts, they're just negotiating it to be minimum wage. So then it just depends upon the individual's disability. So our counselors tend to look to see where that person might fall, to see would they benefit from supported employment, or would they benefit from customized employment where they can find that person's skills and talents and match it with an unmet need of the business. I'll let you finish writing. So I just thought it'd be kind of nice for you guys to have like a visual of our process where customized employment falls. So individuals who have a disability and interested in looking for employment in the community and would like VR's assistance, the counselor would complete an intake. They would get medical documentation, psychological documentation to say, does this person have a disability? And does that disability substantially impact employment, either obtaining, maintaining, or advancing in a career? Some individuals might have a back injury or a vision impairment or a learning disability, but the job that they're doing, it's not impacting them. But for some other situations, it may. They're going to then say, do they require VR services to get that job, maintain their job, or advance in their career? One of the cool things that happened with the 2014 WIOA federal regulations is it gave us the ability to look at career advancement or ladders to advancement or career ladders before. If we help them and they, my example, the person I helped, she got a medical assistance degree, and when I was a counselor, we didn't have the opportunity for career advancement. So when she wanted to become an LPN, an RN, and nurse practitioner, she contacted me. Throughout that time, I provided counseling and guidance. I never opened any case, but I might now, under our current law regulations, have been able to help her maybe with school or different things to help her be successful. Once they're eligible for services, then through customized employment, there's a discovery process. We'll have a meeting, a discovery planning meeting, to say what are some of the areas that this person is interested in. And it's a different format to really learn about the person. It's not a paper pencil thing. It's not just having a meeting. It's really doing some community mapping. What are some of the jobs that are around that person's environment? Because as we know, transportation can be an issue. So is there something, what are those places around where that person lives? So if it's something that meets their skills and abilities and talents and there's an unmet need of the business, walking is a lot easier than riding a bike or taking transit. Once we do community mapping, we might do job shadows, we might do informational interviews. We do a lot of different things with that person. We had somebody who wanted to work in makeup, and so the provider said, okay, let's go check out Safari or whatever whatever they are. I don't go there. They went to a makeup place. Well, it was, if you think about it, if you ever go into one, which I've gone into them, they're loud, they have strong smells, the lights are really bright. So before we even started looking for jobs, because we're still in that exploration piece, that person's like, no way, it's too noisy and it's too bright. And so really thinking of different ways in which to explore and help that person say, is this something that I really want to do? We'll also do situational assessments where they can kind of do like a job tryout in a sense. It's 2 to 8 hours. They're not getting paid. We work with an employer to say, is this something that you would like to do? Because sometimes we also need the opportunity to try things, and hands-on or experience it gives us a better idea of what that could look like. So there's lots of different ways in which we really learn about this person. It might be talking to their teacher. It might be talking to their barber. It might be talking to the neighbor across the street. It's really looking at who knows this person.
Head west.
And who knows their skills and talents. We also encourage the providers to go to their homes, because if you go to somebody's home and they have movie posters all over their thing, all over their walls, it's like, oh, let's have a conversation about it. We had a young man who I encouraged the provider to go and visit with him at his home. Well, when they did, they went to the basement and he would work on computer games and he would rewrite them so that he could break them and win the game. To me, it sounds like a really cool talent and a skill set. He's actually working at MDU now. So really thinking about where individual skills and talents, and you don't do it by a piece of paper, you don't do it in a meeting with a whole bunch of people talking. It's really getting to know that person in a variety of different ways. It might be somebody likes pistachios and they walk to their grandparents' house every day. So why don't you walk with them and have that conversation if it's somebody who doesn't talk a lot? Making individuals feel comfortable so we can really learn who they are. Once they do that, then once we kind of figure out, what's their theme, what's their skill, what's their talent, then we would write a plan that says, this is the job we're gonna look for. We're gonna work with the provider to do that job development and negotiation. Once they get a job, we would pay for the continued job coaching. And then once they are stable, meaning, they've done all the training that they have, we have all the accommodations in place, it's a good fit in regards to an employment environment, the person's satisfied with their job, the number of hours where they're working, we would transition them to the other funding source once the VR case is closed, but we would leave our case open for an additional 90 days, just to make sure everything's okay before we would close them. It's a nice handoff, it's a nice transition to either DD, behavioral health. Sometimes if you get the right job, it could be natural supports with the employer. So really kind of taking a look at what that could be. So that's kind of the process for VR, which we would have for any of our services, but that's where it's more specific for customized employment. Any questions before I kind of talk about how we got to customized employment, besides the law said we needed to have a service?
You talked about natural supports. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like in examples?
It would be, it doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does. It might be like a supervisor, a coworker, it could be somebody outside. Sometimes people might need that natural supports where they can talk to somebody versus having that job coach on the job. So it really depends upon if you have the right supervisor, they can, because a lot of the times, the expectation, I should take that back. The expectation is when we have somebody on the job that the provider puts on the job, we're training based upon the employer's needs. So if the employer has specific training requirements, the provider's then going to make sure that they're training to the employer's requirements, and then finding different ways in which that could be transitioned to that supervisor or a coworker. And in those instances, that could be natural supports if they don't have access to another means. Does that make sense?
So kind of like that job coaching type skill that somebody might be receiving from
Like a coworker, supervisor. It could be somebody who knows that, okay, I know Cheryl and these are the things that she struggles with, but I'm okay to help her with that because I know things that might trigger her because I'm her coworker or I'm her supervisor. We'd love for natural supports to happen more often. I always joke, I don't joke, we all have natural supports at work. We have people that we talk to if we're struggling with something or somebody who helps us with something. So to me, I see natural supports as something that somebody with a disability might have, but it's what we all have. I mean, think about, do you talk to somebody if you have a problem? Or if you're struggling with somebody, do you ask for help? Same thing with natural supports. We all have natural supports.
Is it just more formal, like a mentor kind of?
It could be a mentor. I love 1959. I love peer mentoring because I think that's really cool because it might be somebody with shared lived experience that can then maybe provide some of that support. But I don't know what the definition for peer mentoring. I think it's great and I think it could happen. I don't know if that's what it's defined in 1959. So I don't want to overspeak.
Any other question?
I have something about how we got there, but
Yeah, I just want to check if there's any question online. Okay, continue then.
There's a question from Catherine, has her hand raised?
What then?
Catherine has her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hi, I
Go
just put
ahead.
this in the chat. I just put this in the chat too, but I'm just wondering if you guys use the in-demand occupations list to help identify a job that clients might be interested in pursuing.
Yeah, we do that for all of our clients. With the customized employment, we may or may not, but yeah, our counselors are aware of that. It's really helpful, because for, regardless of customized employment, supported employment, or if we're helping somebody to get a training, we're gonna be looking at what that is. We look at what are their abilities, capabilities, interests, strengths, concerns, priorities, and through informed choice, help them make a selection. So if it makes sense for that person, then the counselor would write a goal for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions about that? So, when the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act passed in 2014, they didn't give us regulations or like definitions of what that is until 2016, so that was fun. But we knew it was coming. And so in 2015, we looked at doing a pilot project that basically looked at specifically working with individuals with intellectual disabilities that might have participated in day support or segregated employment. And it was a partnership between VR and PD, really kind of defining what that looked like. And so we had that criteria, but then we had a grant through Minot State. At our state office, there's 10 people. Part of my job is provider services, which customized employment and supported employment would fall under. And my other job is training. And to manage and develop a service, we actually opted to work with Minot State for them to coordinate training and get everything set up. We had 4 providers that participated in our first go around, which would have been 2015 to 2018. Because the intention was we wanted to really take a look at developing a service, developing a rate, developing a process and procedures. It's not something we've done before, so we had 4 providers that were willing to participate in that. One of the things that they did for our first cohort is they also gave our providers dollars for that to happen so they could hire staff. And then our rules changed, and when we went and did it again, it didn't happen. So it was a 3-year pilot, and it was basically, we met quarterly, we had training on a regular basis. Minot State and the Washington Initiative for Supported Employment came out and did training because they had been doing customized employment in Washington and Seattle for quite some time. So they did training on the discovery process and really looking at exploring and finding individual strengths and talents different than we've done before. They ensured that providers understood how person-centered planning looked and worked so that it was related to the person versus sometimes meetings feel like we're talking to a person or at a person versus that person being part of it. Looking at job searching and not just looking at newspapers. You really need to develop relationships with businesses so you can identify what those unmet needs might be. And then the job development and negotiation and looking at systematic instruction, which is truthfully job coaching, but really the intention of job coaching is to teach and teach ourselves out of having that support being in place. And then just providing what employment supports that person might need as they continue working. So again, this is kind of redundant. It kind of talked about who we were, the initial group we looked for were individuals with DD who might have been in sheltered work or in day support or basically not working in the community. When we expanded it to the next cohort, we took those definitions away because in October of 2018, we had a rate, we had a service, we had a procedure in place. That was October 2019 to March of 20, COVID happened. And that was not so great because it was really hard for our providers. So in 2018 we had the second cohort, and that would be Opportunity Foundation in Williston, Lake Region and Devils Lake, Jamestown had Habit, Red River was Wapaton, because our intention was to ensure that customized employment as a service was available to everybody across the state. COVID hit, we still did a granted third cohort for Aunt Carlson, Triumph, Easter Seals, and Fargo, or BTC and Fargo. We really struggled for the last couple of years, not we, but our providers really struggled with staffing, having staffing, and then when you have the turnover, customized employment isn't just getting somebody a job. One of the things our providers have said, when we looked at our rate, generally that discovery process, before we write a plan, before we start helping that person get a job, is about 40 hours is what we estimated. Providers were saying it takes too long, and when we figured the 40 hours, I figured a rate of $55 an hour for 40 hours, so $2,200 for that to happen. But if you don't have the staffing and the resources for that to happen, it made it really difficult. So we're in the process of really looking at how we can offer customized employment, which providers still have staff that have had the training. We did offer supported employment, free supported employment training through Virginia Commonwealth for our providers. We've also done some training as it relates to the difference between supported and customized employment. But when providers are stretched thin, and it's a different way in which to provide that service, one of the things we need to ensure is, are we doing it the right way? Are we doing it well? So that's kind of where we're at right now, is to say, do we need to have an instrument to ensure that it's happening the way it's supposed to happen and meets fidelity?
So is that $55 an hour like the provider rate,
Yep.
like across the board for anybody that offers this service?
Yep. So $55 is for all of our employment services, so it could be for supported employment, it could be for customized employment, it could be for job development and placement, because what we looked at is, are these services that lead to an employment outcome? We pay $55 an hour.
And there's no limit to how many hours, or you just kind of work on that average of 40, or?
They never get to 40. In fact, we will probably, and we haven't done it, we will probably be looking at our rates and changing that flat rate to an hourly rate, because they might spend 10 hours and they get 40 hours, a paycheck of 40 hours. And if you take 10 hours times 55, that's $550 versus $2,200. So they're saying they don't have time. I think we might be able to get some of the things that need to fall in the discovery report if we were to pay it hourly. I think people sometimes see it differently if they get paid an hourly rate. But we would have to do a study of all of our services and define that methodology. So it's not just changing the rate, but it is something that when we get a new director, it'll be conversations we'll have. Hopefully we have a new director in October.
So I'm just going to ask like a ton of questions here. So like, would you say like, as far as like being able to utilize the service and have people benefit from it, it comes down to the like staff workforce shortage and not the rates?
Yeah, I think so. If you think about what a provider has to do and how they have to navigate our system, they have to navigate DD, they have to navigate all of our services, all of DD's services. And from the conversations we've had with providers, they have turnover of staff. So when you have turnover of staff, then you have training that starts all over again.
And is this just specific to them utilizing like the CIE service or all employment services?
All of our employment services. I just talked to a provider where they have a wait list of 20 VR folks that are waiting. So because they had somebody on FLMA, they had somebody who just got hired, so they got to train that person. I mean, it makes it really hard when we don't have the capacity for providers to provide the services. I don't think it's necessarily the rate, if you don't have the people and they don't have the training. Now that's Cheryl's interpretation.
Last question for now.
Sure.
So, you know, like this, what was it, CREATE pilot? Is that what it was called? As like a training program for the providers so they can
Yep.
learn how to do the service.
Yep.
Do the providers get reimbursed for like participating in that program?
If they, like,
Like if, I don't know, what did you have, Pride on there, it's going to say do the create program and it takes 50 hours of staff time, is there some sort of like, or is that just like,
we can't pay for the training piece of it, we can pay for the service. So if they had somebody that's going through discovery, we could pay for discovery. If we had somebody who was doing job development, we could pay for the job development for customized employment. So the time spent with a client, we could cover that cost.
that's what I was wondering, but like,
In the
to
first,
get that workforce person trained on how to do it,
in the
that's
first,
on the provider.
yeah, in the first grant we did, but then RSA said you can't do those type of grants. The Rehab Services Administration, sorry, acronyms. They changed their rules. And if we, that was a hefty amount of dollars, and I don't know that we would have those dollars to do that again if RSA even let us do it.
And RSA is federal?
Yeah, they're our federal funding source that basically tells us what to do.
That could be a legislative opportunity, though, to fund training for workforce development as part of.
Yeah, I think so, and one of the things that's always been my thing is if we have expectations for agencies or providers or staff to do something, our partners, if we have expectations, there should be an offering for training associated with that. We offered it and like we just did, we worked with one of our technical assistance centers who did offer free training through their technical assistance, but we didn't get a lot of providers that took advantage of it. But it's a time commitment too. So the training might be free, but it's a time commitment if you're going to do this training, you're not providing support to individuals. So it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, which comes first. So that's where the struggle comes from. I took the supported employment, it was a 12-week course. It went through 6 different modules. And I took it a couple of years ago, and I knew how much work that was gonna be. And I heard from some of our staff who took it, how much work that was, extra work outside of their regular normal hours, because you read stuff, you watch videos, that sort of thing. I think the struggle is I think the providers need, it's been a question, it's like, can you pay for training? We can't pay for training. But that's what needs to happen, so that is a struggle. I would encourage if somebody was looking at, hey, we need this amount for training, there should maybe be a stipend to the provider so that they can compensate that. That would be my recommendation. Don't tell my acting director I said that out loud. If anybody wants to come up with the idea and share it, that's fine. But I hear the providers. One of the things as the liaison, I want to hear our staff's issues and concerns, but I also want to hear our providers because we're partners together. And how can we work together to ensure that the people that we serve jointly are able to get jobs in the community?
You might have stated this, but maybe I missed it. When you set your rate, do you set it depend on the market demand, or do you set it based on the material that you put in the training? How do you come up with
The rate
Yeah.
is determined based upon, we did an investigation nationwide, other VR agencies. We also looked at our current, like other options that are equal in North Dakota. So DD 1915I, we also looked at their rates when we determined what our rate was going to be. So in North Dakota, our rate for employment supports, regardless of the service, is pretty comparable to our other partners. Every state does it different, but other states might have higher wages and why their rates might be higher. So we looked at were they paying hourly, were they paying outcome payments. In 2022, maybe it was, in 2023, we actually, we have outcome payments for all of our employment services that lead to an end goal, somebody getting a job. And we pay an outcome payment, but we also pay premium payments if somebody might live in a rural community, if they might be involved in the justice system, if they might have issues with substance use, somebody with an intellectual or developmental disability. And in some situations, individuals that have either a 2 or 4 year degree, but because of their disability or maybe where they're located, but they don't want to move, they might need help with a provider. And so we could pay up to 5 of those premium payments. So somebody could have all 5, and in addition to an outcome payment. So we really tried to hear our providers when they said that they're working with individuals with more significant needs. How can we compensate them to, if they are working with somebody who might have 5 of those barriers, and they get a job, being able to compensate them for their work.
Okay. Any other question? There any question online?
You're still sharing.
Okay. If no question, we will go to the next step. The brief here, discuss what would be the next step on this topic for the commission. So, any discussion?
Well, it sounds like doing some research and looking into rules around reimbursements or stipends for providers might be a good first step if we think we're wanting to push some sort of change on this.
This is Julie. That was my thought too, Veronica. Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Okay. Hearing none, I think you guys could think of it. If you have anything, you can reach out to Stacy and talk about it, or me, or Christopher. Then we'll go from there. So our next topic is the benefit planning and benefit clip, and that will be presented by Amy. Is it Bergen?
Amy Bergen, yeah.
Yep. So floor will be yours.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask you guys a question as I start this out. Imagine if you were told that you had to ask for something that doesn't exist. Now imagine if that threatened your ability to live and work independently or cost you thousands of dollars, because that's what's going on right now in the state of North Dakota for people with disabilities. People are missing out on workers with disability Medicaid. And it's not because they don't qualify for it or are ineligible for it. It's because the system has failed them. They haven't tested them for eligibility to the Workers with Disability Medicaid program. And this has happened to a young man who lost in-home supports. And the cost of that, it was $1,600 that he had to pay out of pocket for that. And another person who his job was threatened because he lost the job coaching supports that accompanied the Medicaid waiver. And the cost to him, over $4,000, because he's not being tested for workers with disability Medicaid. The kicker of all of this is that Medicaid is aware of this and is doing very little to address the issue here. And it's frustrating to see, because people are trying to go to work, trying to be productive members of society. They're already, when they're on benefits, when they're receiving a Social Security benefit, they're already living on a limited fixed income budget. And then when they go to work and they make the choice to go to work, that's a very difficult choice, because there's a real loss of benefits. And it's shown just by those two examples that I gave when I started this talk here. I want to give you just a little background on what Workers with Disability Medicaid is, so you guys have a clear understanding, okay? Workers with Disability Medicaid is in the state plan, and it is for somebody who is working and disabled, and it allows them to have their income increase without it affecting their recipient liability. It also offers them to have the ability of increasing their assets to $13,000. So traditional Medicaid says you can only have $3,000, but Workers with Disability Medicaid says you can have $13,000. But the part that is most striking, I guess, is for this medically needy Medicaid group, there is an income limit, so it's $1,174. So when I say income limit, if somebody has any income over that amount, after they take, I mean, they do some deductions there, but if somebody has income over that amount, anything above that becomes a person's recipient liability. So, just to give you kind of an example, if somebody went to work and started working, let's say they make $2,000 of income every month, their recipient liability would be about $800 or $900 a month. So recipient liability, that's what you have to pay before Medicaid will start kicking in, okay? So these people, if they remained in this Workers with Disability Medicaid group, would be having to pay that. Or I'm sorry, I misspoke. If they remained in this medically needy instead of going to Workers with Disability Medicaid, they would have to pay the recipient liability that is, roughly $800-900. The Workers with Disability Medicaid, for that same person who's making $2,000 a month, 5% of their income. Do you know what that turns out to be? It's $100. $100 versus a recipient liability of $800 or $900. And this is because eligibility workers, if they don't test for Workers with Disability Medicaid at the time when somebody is applying or at renewals or redeterminations, this happens. And the eligibility system itself is not automated to test for any earned income. So this is a clear systemic failure. The issue that I am seeing is, I kind of explained it in that example showing, $800 versus, $100, is that when they go to work, it skyrockets. It creates fear, it creates anxiety. Oftentimes, it makes a person question whether or not working is even worth it. Sometimes people, because they know that the income will go up and their share will go up if they are not enrolled in Workers with Disability Medicaid, sometimes people are turning down jobs. Do you know how many times I've heard somebody say, I'm not going to take the raise? That is unjust, that is unfair, and it is disproportionately affecting people with disabilities who are working, trying to become a productive member of society. I want to be clear on something here. This is not something that is new. This has been going on since I've been doing benefits planning back in 2013. The reason why I'm bringing it up now, or the reason why it's become very apparent now, is because of the COVID unwinding for Medicaid. And during the COVID unwinding, they had to renew everybody's determination for eligibility at that time. And so what I saw happening is that people who were working, because the system is not testing them, were automatically placed into this medically needy group with a recipient liability. And I don't know how many phone calls I was fielding. I was getting phone calls from providers. I was getting phone calls from people themselves panicked in fear. I just got a bill for $800. What am I going to do? And then I look at the notice and I say, okay, this is what you need to do. And I lay it out step by step. This is what you're going to have to do. This is what we had been doing, like providers that were aware of workers with disability Medicaid before COVID. This is what we were kind of doing. This was our fix, our workaround. And so after giving them guidance, like do X, Y, Z, they would call back and sometimes they would say, I was told I'm not eligible, or I was told I have to reapply, or they would say like that they were being told that it is their fault that they didn't enroll, that they should have asked, you like saying to them that they need to ask to enroll in workers with disability Medicaid. A person needs to request it. I explained, I don't know how many different times, how is that possible when there's no awareness, or I shouldn't say no awareness, I don't want to say that. I want to say very, very limited awareness that this program exists. And then it just doesn't make sense to me that Medicaid would place it on the person as their responsibility to request. Like if they should be the backstop to hold, to make sure that Medicaid is doing their job. Oftentimes people, when they would call and do this, they would be, once it has finally been corrected, they would go in and, I shouldn't say finally been corrected, finally enrolled. I would look and I would see, well, you know what though, like your notice here, that doesn't say that. It doesn't say that, it says that you were started in workers with disability Medicaid from this point going forward, but it doesn't correct going backward. And so that was something else that we would have to address and try to fix. And oftentimes, people don't have the resources or the support to do that. And so, or didn't understand how the complex system works, like getting to the people they need to talk to in order to get this fixed. So I know many community providers have helped people request this. I know myself, I have many emails to Medicaid saying, hey, this is so-and-so, explaining their situation and saying they were not tested, can you test them? And still, in some instances, they wouldn't go back to the time when they should have been enrolled or offered workers with disability Medicaid. The one thing that I wanted to point out that was hard for me to accept was that there are a number of people that haven't been connected with me or with an independent living center who's aware of workers with disability Medicaid, or a provider who maybe they, provide them with job coaching or residential supports or whatever. It's all of those people that may have been impacted, and there's no way of finding out if they were. So I want to tell you about a recent situation. Now we've known, like I said, we had this kind of workaround where we would say, okay, we call them, we say, hey, North Dakota policy says this. And I have a handout for you guys here. I'll share with you in a little bit. But the specific policy that I want to tell you is that it mirrors the federal mandates, the CMS policies. And what it says is that if somebody is, and now I'm just like paraphrasing here, if somebody is eligible for any Medicaid group, they need to be tested for that group. And after they're tested, they need to be given a choice. Do they want to enroll in this or this? For example, there's a Medicare savings program, which pays the Part B premium. Somebody on workers with disability Medicaid could be eligible for both. There's an income level where they're not, but that's an example of a choice that would be presented to a person. along with the clear and obvious option of eliminating an $800 recipient liability for a $100 workers with disability Medicaid premium. So, as I said, we've been doing workarounds, we've been doing fixes, trying to support the people that are trying to work the best that we can. It wasn't until just this it was in June, I'd been working with a young man and his parents because he got one of those notices. He got a notice that said, hey, $5,000 in recipient liability that you need to pay the provider. And they didn't test him for workers with disability Medicaid. And so in September, I emailed the Medicaid. There's so many different, it was I think it was the general policy line, because we've been told, reach out to the, I'm sorry, not the general policy line, but the general info@nd.gov Medicaid email thing. We've been told to contact policy administrators and that kind of thing before to correct when somebody hasn't been enrolled in workers with disability Medicaid. So this person, in September, I sent an email to them and asked, and the reply was quick, and they said, yes, we'll look into it. And at that point, the recipient liability only covered a span of a year. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened. The email was lost. The request was not found. And so I followed up in December, because he's still, now remember, during this time, he's still being charged $500 or more a month from his provider. And I didn't get a response. So then I called, I don't know how many different times. And let me be honest, it wasn't just me calling, it was the parents that were calling too. So it's not like it was a silent issue. It should have been more of like the squeaky wheel gets the oil thing. And it took another 2 months, and then I followed up again in February. And finally, I sent the original email back, and then they looked at things in May. In May! It took almost a year for this person to get the fix that they needed so that they were not spending crazy amounts of dollars for the supports that they deserve, are entitled to, and need just to live independently. So in May, I got the email, and they said they were looking at it, and they said, we can only go back a year. I don't know where they came up with that year time frame, but they said that they can only go back a year. And I said, he inquired about this in September. And I pointed out, I have the emails that I've sent with, and I can share them with you if you want to hear the stories or how I explained it to them so you guys have a better understanding. But basically, I outlined, this is the cost, this is the impact, and if you don't address it now, he's going to continue to, have this outstanding balance, and it's just not there. And the reply, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. At that time, in that email, I said, it is your guys' responsibility to test and to offer choice. It says directly in Medicaid policy, North Dakota State Medicaid policy. And the reply that I got back was that the system doesn't automatically test for that. And until this time, I wasn't fully aware that it was literally built into the system that they are not testing, that the system isn't flagging earned income or anything like that. And so when I heard that, I was kind of shocked. And so I started digging into some policy and looking outside of North Dakota policy. And I came across the same, when I mentioned earlier, the same policies that Medicaid, the federal Medicaid follows. And it says, states must offer workers with disability medical, well, nope, sorry, that was the wrong one. This is kind of a paraphrase here. But states must offer workers with disability to individuals eligible under multiple groups and allow the beneficiary to choose. So it mirrors North Dakota policy. Other policies talk about before moving a person to a less favorable Medicaid eligibility group, they need to do get all of the information from that person. Like they can't do just a generic, oh, there doesn't look like any changes, and so we don't have to do any kind of more intensive review. This, when I saw those two, and I realized that it's not just a North Dakota policy, but a federal policy that is being violated, I was like, okay, let's find out what's going on. And so I went to the policy administrator and I questioned, explain this. Can you help me understand why this is not being followed? And at that time, now I mentioned that I had received a written admission that the system doesn't test. Then during a phone call, she also admitted again that it's not tested. And in fact, she admitted that it was not tested before they launched because they had a new system that they began using right like during COVID. I don't know specific dates, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that it wasn't tested before it was launched in April of 2023 when the Medicaid reviews started happening because of the unwinding period. In that conversation, she shared with me that she thought that probably 500 people were enrolled in Workers with Disability Medicaid, but believed that potentially 300 more could be enrolled. The one thing I want to point out about that, I don't think that she took into consideration the people that had lost coverage at that point and weren't eligible because of a termination. After that phone call, after she acknowledged these issues, I just said, is there anything that you can do? Is there any fixes or anything like that? And she said, I brought up the idea of doing like a flag in the system to remind people to test. But she said that she was turned down, that it wasn't pursued any further. So I asked for her supervisor and spoke with her supervisor and asked about the fix, asked about when the automation would happen to the Medicaid eligibility system, and she said that she thought that it was far out. I believe she said something about, I might be retired by the time the fix has been implemented, and that it had been deprioritized because of the big beautiful bill that had recently passed, and that the Medicaid systems were going to be needing to be updated to reflect those changes. So following that conversation, I continued and I reached out to the state Medicaid director to ask more information. And I called and didn't get a message or a return phone call. I emailed and I didn't get a return email. And so finally, last week, I called again and I finally connected with her and I asked those questions of her. And she basically confirmed that the automation is missing and that she doesn't believe that I don't want to put words into her mouth, but my understanding was the same as what I'd been told previously, that it's not a priority, that the fix is not a priority. And couldn't give me any formal timeline as to when the fix would happen, but shared that they had gotten some additional funding to pursue those fixes. When I shared that I believed that it was a systemic error, people were being terminated and unnecessarily, she she didn't really have much to say about that. And so I explained that I think that it's only fair that you guys should explore retroactive fixes and identify people that have been harmed because of this. And she said that she doesn't think that the system currently has the ability to go back and identify those people. I don't know if I believe that she said that she was going to check into it. And I pressed on about how this is important, and I explained that this is a violation of state policy, federal policy, and the COVID unwinding guidance that was given. And I offered, she offered to allow me to bring people that I knew that had been impacted, because at that time when I spoke with her, I said, and this was just going off the top of my memory, that I knew of at least 20 people just that I work with on my caseload in the last, since the unwinding started, that this is affected. As I've begun going through my records, I'm seeing that it's more. And I said that I would share that information with her, the people that I come across, because she was not sure if the system could go back and check. So my plan now is I'm going to reach out to community providers, independent living centers, and ask for unidentifiable information like their client ID number, and ask if this happened to them. Just have them identify these things, because then I'll bring it back to her and ask that she correct these issues. At that time, like after that phone call, I contacted Protection and Advocacy. I'd been in contact with them several times over this period and discussed these issues. And they said that they were aware of them too. That it's kind of like something that's hiding in plain sight. People know, but aren't really sure if this is like violating things, policy, like legal things. So in fact, I have a meeting with Protection and Advocacy right after this to go into things a little bit more in depth. And as the Olmstead Commission, I guess my ask of you guys is that you support and encourage and push for automation for the Medicaid eligibility system at a minimum. What questions do you guys have for me?
I don't have any questions, but I think you're doing good work. I wouldn't want to be on the other side of some of those phone calls, I don't think, so. Very good advocate.
I have a comment if I can make it. If you don't mind, I agree with Amy about what's going on, because I'll give you my personal story. I am on the Workers with Disabilities, and they lose my checks, they lose food stamp paperwork constantly. I was kicked off for 4 months. And I had to pay extra money out of my account to pay for food until they could correct the errors. So it's becoming a problem. We have to pay checks every month, and they lose them, and they don't know what they're doing. You don't know who you're talking to. You tell them what Workers with Disability is. Most of the workers don't know what's going on. I work with it every day, and I have families that contact me and say, we need help. And it's just like, it is happening. It's happened to me 3 times personally. So I know it needs to be dealt with, because it's not fair to us to have these errors as clients. We get accused of things. Judge Weiler, you probably will see it on the guardianship issues too. Guardians are getting accused of not doing paperwork, not getting things in on time. We lose it, they lose it, and then we get in trouble, and it's a big mess. So it'll affect guardians as well. of the court reports of this commission, I would encourage them to look into that because it will affect guardians and you're putting them liable for something they're not doing. Thank you.
I believe you, because when I filled out the paperwork for my son who's got autism and he's on the autism waiver, and in order to be on the autism waiver, you have to be on Medicaid, even though I normally wouldn't qualify for Medicaid, but they won't allow me to have it without having the Medicaid. And I filled out my paperwork in December, which is my eligibility month, and they said they never got it. So then I got a letter in January saying they never got it when I know I personally went and dropped it off. So then we had to redo the paperwork and, anyways, it took another 2 months for us to get him back on
Yeah,
Medicaid. So,
that's happened to me.
yeah,
I have 3-4 different instances
Yeah.
where it happens that I
no, I agree.
have people dropping it off at the zone office
Mhm.
and it gets lost. I have to make sure everything's stamped and
Mhm.
right. But I don't know how long to keep things because you don't know when they're gonna lose it.
I started emailing, but not everybody has that option that I do. So I had proof that I'd sent things, but yeah, it is a problem, losing the paperwork and all the
Even
issues
email,
going on.
they'll say they don't have it.
Yeah, that's true, or they didn't get it, but.
This is
Yeah.
like, these issues that you guys are talking about are just like a couple things that are wrong with the system. Notices being sent, notices not being received, being told they need to reply. The notices themselves are horrible to read. They're really difficult. There's no plain language in them. It doesn't like clearly spell out, you're eligible for this. This is what you owe, and this is what you need to do. They say, like, they cite North Dakota Century Code. They have these, like, your premium is blah, blah, and then a long line. I can show you notices if you'd like. It is really difficult to understand just for, like, everyone. It's just, ugh.
And one more thing to add, as a client, I did a project for them. It was a pilot project where I went down to the county and it was years ago. We told them what needed to be improved and they didn't do it. This was 3 years ago. I forget Julie when it was, but I remember me being asked to do it. So we've given them several opportunities to do so.
We have a couple of questions online. Deneen?
Yeah, well, not a question, just a comment. When the reauthorization process was going on, our staff went through there were many calls that we took regarding the Medicaid waivers and eligibility and that kind of thing. So we did meet with the director of Medicaid and the assistant director, letting them know what we were seeing, and ask if there was, what can we do to help and expedite some of these things. And then we made a request that there would be at least one person at the state office that could, because you're right, Amy, the zones didn't know what was going on. The eligibility workers were not helpful. And a lot of times every time you would call, you would get somebody else. And I mean, it was just, it was terrible. And there's no two ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was terrible. And so our request was that there would be one person at the Medicaid office that deals with special populations that could be called for the incidences that we were seeing and happening, and could help us solve the issue. And we asked that many months ago, and we still have not heard that. But I just wanted you to know that too, Amy, that was one request that we had. But it wasn't just with workers with disabilities. It was happening all across the board with the waivers as well. Just a comment.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that information.
Scott?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of briefly, obviously the frustrating part of what you talked about, Amy, is it's a kind of bureaucratic barriers that exist. We all know there's enough barriers that exist in trying to get people employed, but when you hear these bureaucratic uncertainties, the effect that has on people who just believe that employment isn't a real issue is profound. And with that, the other day I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who I don't want to out her too much here, so I'll just say she's an employee of the state and Department of Human Services. And in her comments in that conversation with her, she said something along the lines of, well, that place, everybody that's there is on SSDI, so they can't work. And of course, as a longtime advocate for employment, I then, proceeded to freak out at her a little bit in a very friendly way. But the reality is that, as I know Janine just talked about it as well, there is so much turnover that's happened in the last 5 years within all these different positions. And just the lack of institutional knowledge around work incentives, around employment, around things like workers with disabilities, around all of this. And I guess kind of my question for you is, how do we begin to, again, re-educate folks on how this all works and really about the dangers around the silent discrimination of low expectations?
From my perspective, I think it starts with just knowledge and awareness. Knowledge is power. So giving people that knowledge so that they can advocate for themselves, so they can be that backstop in case the system fails them. Training for providers, for independent living centers. I want to be fair to say that when the director emailed me back, because she said that she would email me back and let me know of the things that she discussed, that one of those things was more outreach efforts. So outreach efforts to maybe tribal affiliations, providers.
What about schools? Like where they're gonna be able to identify the people that may benefit from applying for this program, something they can give to parents and or the people themselves in order to make sure when they do apply, when they turn 18 and they have a job, that they know to do this. Is that one of the resources as well?
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
I mean, the more that you can spread awareness of this, the better it is for everybody involved.
All right, any other question?
I just have one comment. There is a North Dakota Medicaid Medical Advisory Committee. Has there been any discussions on submitting this to that advisory committee? And is that an appropriate thing?
I would be willing to give it to them. I just, within the last couple of months, put all the puzzle pieces together. But I would be more than willing to share this with them.
And for those of you online, I will get you a copy of this too.
Let's remember to send that to you.
I can scan it into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
At the end of the Medicaid advisory committees, there's always time for public comments, Amy. So that might be a time to bring it up, is at the end of that advisory committee meeting.
Okay, I'll check into when they're meeting next.
I can tell you in a minute, hang on. They're meeting next week at 3:00 on Tuesday, the 19th.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Thank you so much, Amy, and it's been informative. So it will be up to the commission now to discuss on this and see what will be the next move. So if you have any suggestion, bring them forth. Thank you, Amy. As a start of conversation, Veronica, is it something that we could write a letter and then send it in as a part of support, or how do we go about this?
I think it would be up to the commission to decide what direction that they wanted to go. I think in the past we've done research projects, we've invited people in to present on specific topics so we can kind of hear all perspectives on the situation. We could do a white paper, we could do testimony to a group or like the MMAC or an interim group. So I mean, I think we have a lot of options for us. We don't really, as an Olmstead Commission, have teeth, so,
Okay.
but we can provide recommendations and insight and do awareness.
Okay.
If I decide to take this to the next level, would that be something that you guys would provide, like a letter of support?
When you say we can advocate, what's the parameters on our being able to do that? Can we do letters of support as part of that? Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it's mostly outlined in the governor's executive order, and it does, like I said, doesn't have much as far as like teeth. Like we can't say Medicaid, you need to do this, but we can say Medicaid, the Olmstead Commission thinks this is a problem. We recommend you do this. We suggest you look into that kind of thing. But it probably would need like a vote of the board.
We probably would want some teeth in it, so maybe we would need to look at some of the research too. Someone can provide some of that, like some of the research you've done on how many people this has affected, just in a broad sense that we know of. Because that might be something that we would want to put in that letter of support, to put a little more teeth behind it. So maybe we need to propose maybe someone doing a background or something on it.
Perhaps Steph could work something up for us and send it our way, and then we can kind of discuss that and maybe revisit at the next meeting what kind of formal action we'd want to take.
That's what I think.
So fact finding right now, kind of put everything together, and then maybe in the future, once you have that information, then write a letter of support?
Well, then decide what we want to do.
Then we decide
okay.
what we do, yeah.
Perhaps if you're kind of, I don't know, putting together a big summary, a big picture look at this problem, it might also be helpful as commission members if you come up with like some different options for actions we could take to give us some ideas, and then we could kind of pick from that menu how we wanted to proceed.
Is there a pamphlet that explains, this is telling us, some of the problems and how we can fix them, but is there like a brochure, everybody loves brochures, about this specific program that we can send out to people to make them aware?
Yes.
There is. Can we get a copy of that too, to look at? And then maybe we can also propose sending out some informational packets to like people we identify or providers we'd identify that it may be beneficial to.
The one thing that the Medicaid director acknowledged was that they are working, like I mentioned, working towards increasing awareness, and had just recently updated their eligibility page to show and give more information about Workers with Disability Medicaid program, and updating their fact sheet.
Okay.
I'm glad they did that, but there's so much that a lot of people don't have computer access.
Yeah, I was thinking physical copies we could hand to
Yeah,
people.
yeah, and that's what I would prefer, because the families I'm talking to don't know the computer access.
Okay. Julie said she wanted to add that this is a good way for the commission to look at a system problem and make recommendations.
Especially as it aligns with goal 7.
This is Julie. Do you want a formal motion on what we just discussed, or what are you guys thinking?
Yeah, I think we would have formal, since will be carried to the next level. I think we would like to have a formal motion on this, so.
Do I need to explain the motion then? Or is it just everything we just discussed?
Basically, okay. The motion
This is
will
Julie. I
base
can
on-
take it. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so what we'll be looking at is to do a research and then come up with a fact finding and maybe do a letter of support or recommendation. So, am I missing anything?
And then maybe bring the research and the options of what comes next back to the commission at our next meeting.
Right, so.
I'll make that motion.
This is Scott, I'll second it.
Julie make a motion?
Who was that?
Scott seconded it.
Scott. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Our next item is commission orientation guide.
Oh, yeah.
Stephanie.
So I, if you want to look in your packets, or for those of you online, I did send these. I realized at the last meeting that a lot of you are new like me. And so I just wanted to give you kind of an overview of the history of Olmstead. There's a little bit about the ADA on there. It talks about the commission. It shows who all of the voting members are. It talks a little bit about the terms. On the back side, it talks about the non-voting members. It has just those goals. We're doing number 7, so increase employment opportunities and incomes. That's the one that we were working on for this meeting. And the last meeting, it just talks about those different goals that we have in the Olmstead plan. That full Olmstead plan is on the website if you want to take a look at that. And then it gives a little bit of information about the advisory council. I have 5 applications right now for the advisory council. We were thinking that we would like to have between like 7 and 10 people. So if you know anybody that's interested in the advisory council, we're looking for people with lived experience. So if you know anybody that would be a good fit for that, send them my way or direct them to the Olmstead website. And then at the bottom, I have just a QR code for the Olmstead Commission website and the Facebook page. So if you aren't already following the Olmstead Commission on Facebook, I put out information about what we're doing currently. So like right now our topic is employment. So I have been putting different things out there about employment on Facebook. The other thing that I have on here is the advisory council guidelines. So this is just what the people that are on the advisory council, this is what they'll get, kind of their instructions on what their responsibilities are and stuff like that. What their term is on there, a 1-year term on a voluntary basis, that they will meet quarterly between Olmstead Commission meetings. So the idea is that they will kind of give us their feedback on what we're doing here at these meetings. Hopefully they will come to the meetings and give us that information in person. If not, I can be kind of the pass between the two groups. I know Pat, I don't know if Pat Trainer on the call. He said that he was interested in sitting in on the advisory council meetings. Is anybody else interested from the commission in sitting in on those?
Yes, I'm interested. This is Pat.
Pat, okay. I've got you down, Pat. Veronica says maybe.
Might be kind of topic dependent.
Okay. I don't think you need to come to every single one either, yeah. I won't. Busy. Anybody else interested in that? Okay, we
This
can
is
kind of
Julie.
keep that
I
open.
would.
Julie, okay. Thanks, Julie. And then I just put in here, so like I did for you guys, I also did an advisory council orientation guide, which has the same history, still talks about the plan, But then on the back, it talks about their roles and responsibilities a little bit more, kind of lets them know that they are just there to give recommendations to the Olmstead Commission, that they're not going to be making any decisions. Kind of like the Olmstead decision doesn't have any teeth to be able to demand anything. The same thing applies for the advisory council. They're just giving that lived experience, that opinion back to the commission.
All right, that's it. One thing, I just want to go back to item number 7 or number 5. We have discussed this, which is goal number 7. I just want to ask the opinion of commission, what would be the next move? Because we heard what we're supposed to hear, and what would be the next move on this, because it was put forward for discussion before, but there was nothing on it. Should we put it to rest, or should we continue doing work on it?
Are you asking about the employment goal in general? Or
Yes.
are you wanting a motion specific to that item number 5?
On the
On the general
presentation?
goals, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I don't think we're by any means done like fixing
Done.
the issue of
Yeah.
employment, but I know we have a lot of different groups, so it might be nice to mix it up a little bit.
Okay.
I know like we have DOT and housing over here, so I don't know if like employing's really revving your engine. It might be good to do some other topics too.
Well, it looks like housing's next.
Yep.
Housing would be the next one. Okay.
So as far as the benefits planning, we want to do more research. Do we want to do the same when it comes to the VR presentation? Do we want to do anything more about the customized employment, or?
I think I would like to have, if I can I make a motion?
Yeah.
Is that how we're doing this?
Yep.
I guess I would like our Olmstead coordinator to do some further research into opportunities for creating a mechanism for stipends or reimbursement for training, or for the providers to do training and do customized employment.
Okay.
And come up with recommendations and
Yep.
bring it back to the group.
I'll second it.
All right. Motion, and it's been second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Just a little bit slow.
Okay. All right, so we'll go up to that. So our next meeting, upcoming meeting will be November 12th at 1 o'clock. I think we will do both in person and online, like the way we did it now. And the topic of that will be housing, so. And I think there was some point that we raised before. We should, the email that was sent to us, was it you, Veronica, that sent that email from Senator Hogan?
About housing,
Oh,
Yep.
They were all about housing, or
That-
some were not?
that she wanted us to focus on housing. Yep, and
Yep.
so that's our next topic.
Okay, all
Yep,
right.
she had brought that up at the last meeting,
Okay,
and then I think she just reiterated that with Veronica a little bit.
okay.
Do we have anywhere specific we want to go with housing? No. Not that I'm aware of.
And I think the thing you need to work on with housing is the new federal requirements for the voucher. They've been changing that, so it's gonna be harder to get a voucher now. So. They talked about it at the last, or maybe a previous DOJ stakeholder committee meeting, Veronica. You might wanna look back. It wasn't the last one, I think it was in December before session. And Mr. Floor was there from Housing Finance.
Scott, you have your hand up?
I do. I was going to say that I think when we come around housing, there's obviously so much that entails that, but housing is by far the biggest barrier we're seeing right now. And specifically barriers for people with extra barriers, or housing for people with extra barriers. So looking at things like bad criminal histories, sex offenders, bad credit, recent evictions, those type of things. I think that like maybe alternative solutions are just really, if nothing else, just having conversations about how difficult that situation is right now.
It's interesting you bring that up, Scott, because we do have an interim committee that's looking at a lot of work around sealing records. And so I do wonder if there would be, depending what we find out, some opportunity there to communicate with our legislators if there are possibilities to create some protections for people with disabilities that have evictions or criminal histories due to their disability on their record that's preventing them from getting housing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would the commission want some sort of presentation of a legislative wrap-up with what occurred with regard to housing, or what didn't go through with regard to housing in this last session? Our agency was funded $25 million for the Housing Incentive Fund and $10 million for the North Dakota Homeless Grant, which is the largest general fund appropriation for homeless grant that has ever happened. So, happy to kind of talk through what happened this last session and maybe what got left on the table. There was 12 tenant protection bills that were proposed and one went through and the other 11 died a very difficult death. And so, there is opportunities to discuss the commission's work as it relates to the individuals that are served and their barriers and how tenant protections is really important to them, and is there any type of strategy for the next session for improvement of bills. So we can kind of talk about that as it relates to your goal 4, and then what other parts of information you'd like. For Health and Human Services world, the $13 million that was proposed for the housing stabilization did not make it through, so what was that replacement, any of that kind of stuff. Happy to help with that. I don't know if Health and Human Services plays a role in that, or if that's a follow-up presentation too.
Okay. Yeah, are you volunteering to do that presentation?
I can do parts of it, yeah.
Okay. Did you say you need somebody from Health and Human
I
Services?
don't know, maybe we need to talk about what else is wanting to be discussed for that housing topic.
Okay.
I think it'd be helpful to know where are we right now and what do we need?
Yes.
Like, what's housing's available right now? What are we missing? I don't know who would discuss that, but
Well,
I'm
and
guessing somebody with P&A maybe, or
could be,
housing.
September 4th is the Health and Human Services Interim Committee's first meeting on the homeless study, and so that could be a good wrap up for you guys as far as what was discussed in that committee meeting and things like that too, to connect those dots.
Okay. Yeah, I think that if you want to present on the legislative updates and kind of what you guys are doing, and then we can see about Health and Human Services and see if they can kind of give us an update too.
We can talk about that, yep.
Okay.
I'll visit with Brandon to decide if he wants to.
Oh, sure.
Versus
Yep.
me, but we'll have somebody.
Definitely. Okay, cool.
Sound like we have a plan here, so. Any other question, any other concern? Or we move to public comment from the commissioners? All right, hearing none. Any public comment?
I have one thing. Kind of goes back to that with the zones, and it kind of will relate to your zone stuff, but the out-of-state travel that goes through the zone, that's a disaster as well. So I just want you guys to be aware it's a 24-month process to get it all done. So that is something that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thanks. Saw Pat online.
Oh, yep.
Hey, Pat Trainer, the interim commissioner of Health and Human Services. I just wanted to indicate to everyone that if they'd like to set up a time to go over, I got in on the tail end of the Medicaid discussion, and I'd be happy to set up a time to meet with each and every one of you or visit about some of these issues that were brought up, and perhaps there were more. But happy to do that. And so if Sally Meyer is my assistant, if folks would like to visit with me, I'd be honored to do so. So I heard some of those, didn't know if it was appropriate for me to respond. And I realized I really like to be there in person. I was unable to make it, but everyone's been super helpful, and I'd really like to give every effort to address some of these concerns mentioned. I know Deneen Feist, so I know she's on my list to visit with, and just want you to know that I want to listen and see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I miss anything, Stephanie, Veronica?
Anything?
You keep
Anything?
looking at me, which just indicates I've been talking too much.
No, I'm just asking if there's anything that we missed. Otherwise, if not, then we will adjourn the meeting. I would ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Veronica. I move to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second this, Deneen.
All right, all in favor, say hi.
Aye.
Those who
Aye.
went up to stay here, same side. Meeting adjourned. See you on November 12th. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
I like these meetings in person better. Sitting on my computer is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't participate.
Yeah, I prefer meetings in person. I kind of got sick of Zoom in about 2021. After about a year of it, I was done.